The clouds over Riverstone hung low that morning, smeared like ash across the sky. It was one of those cold spring days that couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or just sulk. Detective Marcus Bell gripped the steering wheel of his battered Ford Taurus, the heater humming weakly, barely pushing back the chill. He'd been a cop for 12 years. In that time, he'd stared down armed suspects, calmed domestic disputes, talked a teenager out of suicide, and once, even delivered a baby in the back of a stolen minivan. But nothing in his police academy training could have prepared him for what was about to go down at a gas station. He pulled into the Sunoco on Bayside Avenue, a quiet strip off the highway where manicured hedges met cracked asphalt. It was a transitional neighborhood, just suburban enough to boast yoga studios and gluten-free bakeries, but still gritty enough that you checked your surroundings twice after dark. Marcus parked near Pump 6, stepped out of his car, and stretched. His back cracked. He hadn't slept much. A double shift on Monday had bled into court on Tuesday, and now it was Wednesday, and he hadn't even finished his coffee. He slid his card into the reader, pressed a few buttons, and started fueling. His eyes glazed over for a moment, watching the numbers on the pump tick upward. And then, click, 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 heels, sharp, impatient, coming fast across the concrete. Marcus didn't turn around. He already knew what was behind him. You could smell that kind of entitlement, like overripe perfume and plastic pearls. Still, he sighed and braced himself. "Excuse me?" He turned. She was tall, maybe late 40s, with platinum blonde hair curled into a stiff bob that probably hadn't moved since 2009. Oversized sunglasses sat perched on her nose despite the lack of sunlight. A salmon-pink cardigan was draped over her shoulders like a cape, and around her neck hung a strand of pearls so large they looked like tiny golf balls. Behind her, a gleaming white BMW SUV idled, door open, hazard lights flashing. The vehicle, like its driver, looked allergic to dirt. Marcus offered a polite smile. "Yes, ma'am." "My tank's empty," she said, gesturing toward the BMW like it was a wounded animal. "And I'm running late for Pilates. Could you be a dear and fill it up for me?" For a second, Marcus thought he'd misheard. Maybe the wind carried the words wrong. Maybe she was joking. But she wasn't smiling. He blinked. "I'm sorry." She frowned, her tone sharpening. "I don't have time for this. I've got an appointment in 15 minutes. You're already here. Just take my card or whatever. Fill it." Marcus gave a short laugh. The kind you let out when you're trying not to sound rude. "I'm not a gas station employee, ma'am. I'm a police detective, just stopping to fuel up my car before work." "Oh," she said, eyeing his car as if noticing it for the first time. "That thing is yours?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yes, ma'am, that thing is mine." She folded her arms, unimpressed. "Well, detective or not, you could show a little community spirit. It's the least you could do, considering." "Considering what?" he asked, calmly. She pursed her lips. "Considering the circumstances, you people are always going on about serving the public. Here I am, a woman in need, late for a class that helps my spine health, and you're just standing there." Marcus took a slow breath. He dealt with aggressive suspects, irate lawyers, and unhinged exes. But this was something else. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "I understand you're in a hurry, but I can't pump gas for you. That's your responsibility." "You're refusing to help me?" she said, voice rising. "Do you know who I am?" He fought the urge to smile. "Here we go." She straightened her cardigan, stepping closer. "I'm Priscilla Halderman, HOA president of Eastfield Heights. We practically run this town." "Congratulations," Marcus said, deadpan. "Still not a gas station employee." Priscilla's mouth fell open slightly. Her outrage vibrated like static. "You people think you can get away with anything these days. This is harassment." "Harassment?" Marcus repeated, incredulous. She pulled out her phone. "You leave me no choice. I'm calling the police." Marcus stared at her for a moment. Then, with the slow amusement of a man watching a toddler throw a tantrum, he nodded. "Go ahead." She dialed, loudly. "Yes, 911. I'm at the Sunoco on Bayside. I'm being threatened. There's a man here. He's refusing to help me. He's aggressive. He's black." "Yes, that's right. Black. I don't feel safe." Marcus didn't say a word. He just finished fueling, hung the nozzle back in place, and walked inside to grab a cup of coffee. Behind him, Priscilla paced, gesturing wildly into the phone. He poured his coffee black, took a sip, and muttered, "Yup, gonna be one of those days." Part 2. When privilege becomes a weapon. Inside the gas station's small, fluorescent-lit convenience store, Detective Marcus Bell stood at the coffee machine, listening to the faint sound of Priscilla Halderman still shrieking into her phone just outside. He didn't have to see her to know what kind of performance she was putting on. He'd heard it all before. The problem wasn't just entitlement. It was weaponized entitlement. He stirred in a dash of creamer, then caught the clerk behind the register giving him a wide-eyed stare. "You good out there, man?" the young guy asked, glancing toward the window. Marcus nodded, sipping his coffee. "She'll be fine, just trying to get someone arrested for not pumping her gas." The clerk gave a disbelieving laugh. "Seriously?" "Dead serious." Marcus paid for the coffee, nodded his thanks, and stepped back out into the cold air. Priscilla was now pacing in tight, frustrated circles, her heels clacking with each dramatic pivot. Her voice, artificially distressed, still carried a sharp edge of command. "I'm telling you, officer," she barked into the phone. "He refused to help me. I was terrified. He got hostile when I asked him to assist a woman in distress. I think he's still here. Yes, still at the Sunoco on Bayside Avenue." She turned sharply when she noticed Marcus walking back toward his car, coffee in hand. She immediately raised her voice. "He's leaving now. He's walking to his car. I need an officer here immediately, before he drives off." Marcus calmly unlocked the Taurus, got in, and rolled the window down halfway. "Have a good day, ma'am," he said with a slight smile. "And don't forget to hydrate after Police." Her jaw clenched. "You won't get away with this." "I wasn't trying to get away with anything," he replied. "I was trying to get to work." With that, he drove off, turning left out of the station and cruising down toward downtown Riverstone. 10 minutes later, he pulled into the lot behind the Riverstone Police Department. As he stepped into the building, he was met with the familiar scent of burnt coffee, old paper, and disinfectant. A young officer named Kevin sat at the front desk, playing a quiet game of solitaire on the department computer. "Morning, Kev," Marcus said, holding up his cup in greeting. Kevin looked up. "Detective Bell, you look mildly amused. That's either good or bad." "Oh, it's leaning toward the real bad but funny category," Marcus said, walking past the desk. "I'll tell you after I check in." He made his way to the third floor and stepped into Captain Reyes' office. The captain was mid-50s, Latina, sharp-tongued and sharper-minded, with a seen-it-all kind of patience that was increasingly rare in law enforcement. "Bell," she said, not looking up from her paperwork. "You're early," he grinned. "Thought I'd get a jump start on the day. Also, you might want to dispatch someone to the Sunoco on Bayside." Her eyes flicked up. "What happened?" "Karen happened." She leaned back. "Do I want to know?" Marcus recounted the encounter, the demand for free gas, the threat, the 911 call, and by the end, Reyes had set her pen down and was openly laughing. "She called the police on a detective while you were on your way to the police station. That's the gist. And she used the race card?" Loudly. Reyes shook her head, reaching for her radio. "Dispatch, this is Captain Reyes. Send a unit to the Sunoco gas station on Bayside. Possible false report of harassment. Suspect is a female, white, mid-40s, name unknown, causing a scene and possibly obstructing business." "Copy?" Kevin's voice crackled over the radio. "Copy, Captain. Officer Rios en route." Reyes clicked the radio off. "I'll have her ID'd and bring her in if she escalates. You go write this up for the record, Bell. Keep it clean." Marcus nodded, already on it. But as he sat down at his desk and opened a fresh report file, he couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Women like Priscilla didn't back down easily. Not when they thought the world owed them something. Especially not when the person who stood in their way looked like him. Meanwhile, back at the Sunoco, Officer Rios pulled up in his cruiser and stepped out. He was young, Cuban-American, fresh out of the academy, but sharp and observant. He walked over to Priscilla, who stood beside her SUV with her phone still in hand. "Ma'am," he said calmly, "I'm Officer Rios with Riverstone PD. You placed a call about a disturbance?" "Yes," she said, eyes wide. "Thank goodness. That man, he was aggressive, threatening. I felt completely unsafe." Rios took out a notepad. "Can you describe the man?" "Yes. Black male, 6 feet, average build, wearing a blue shirt and jeans, driving a rundown Ford. It looked like a police car from the 1990s. Rios blinked slowly. "Do you recall anything else?" "He refused to help me pump gas." I felt threatened by his tone and demeanor. He had an attitude problem. Rios scribbled a few notes and nodded. Ma'am, I'm going to need to take a full statement. That may require you to come down to the station. Priscilla straightened her back. Fine, I'll do that. I want to make sure this man is held accountable. He should not be allowed to intimidate women in public like that. Rios kept a straight face. Understood. If you'll follow me, I'll escort you in. As Priscilla climbed into the back seat of the cruiser, thinking she was being honored for her civic courage, Rios radioed back. Captain, this is Rios. The suspect is cooperating. En route to the station for the statement. Reyes responded with dry amusement. Copy. Let's make sure she gets all the attention she deserves. Back at the station, Marcus had just finished his write-up when Kevin leaned in through the door. You're gonna love this. Officer Rios is bringing in the lady. Marcus arched a brow. To file a complaint? To walk right into the biggest plot twist of her year. They both chuckled. Reyes stepped into the room. Belle, I want you in the waiting area when she gets here. Marcus blinked. You sure? I want her to realize what she did, in person. Marcus grabbed his badge and jacket. Let's give her the courtesy she didn't offer me. 10 minutes later, Priscilla Halderman was escorted into the Riverstone PD waiting area, where a few other civilians sat filling out paperwork. She looked around, clearly expecting more, perhaps a private office or a red carpet. When she didn't get it, she started tapping her foot impatiently. That's when Marcus walked in. He didn't say a word at first, just stood in front of her, expression calm. Priscilla's face contorted in confusion, then realization, then horror. You? She whispered. You're the one from the gas station. Marcus nodded. Detective Marcus Bell, welcome to the station. You tricked me. No ma'am, he said evenly. You called the police to file a report. I just happened to be the subject of that report, and also the officer who received it. She sputtered. This is harassment. No ma'am. This is accountability. For a few seconds, the station was completely silent, except for the ticking of the wall clock and the squeak of Priscilla Halderman's designer heels as she shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Detective Marcus Bell stood tall before her, arms crossed lightly, expression unreadable. Priscilla's mouth opened, then closed. Her mind was scrambling for a new strategy, some way to reframe what just happened. You set me up, she hissed finally, her voice a strangled whisper. Marcus tilted his head. No ma'am, you called 911. You made a public report. I just happened to already be heading to work, here. She looked around as if searching for an exit that didn't exist. There was none. The same officer who she insisted was threatening her was now standing in front of her, in uniform, in his precinct. And more damning than anything else, he was calm. You lied to the 911 dispatcher, Marcus continued. Claimed you were threatened, claimed you felt unsafe, and now you're sitting in a police station, staring at the man you accused, knowing full well none of it was true. Priscilla inhaled sharply. I did feel unsafe. Marcus didn't blink. Because someone said no to you? Her cheeks flushed red. You were disrespectful. You refused to help me. I refused to pump your gas, Marcus corrected. That's not a crime. What is a crime is filing a false police report. Her eyes widened. You wouldn't. Oh, I wouldn't what? He asked, leaning forward slightly. I wouldn't treat a privileged woman the same way we treat everyone else when they lie to police officers? She flinched. I gave you every chance, he added. I was polite. I walked away. I told you to have a good day. But you couldn't let it go. You had to flex your AO power and see if it could get someone arrested. And now, here we are. A door opened behind Marcus, and Captain Reyes walked in, clipboard in hand. Afternoon, Mrs. Halderman, she said crisply. Detective Bell, thank you. I'll take it from here. Marcus stepped aside as Reyes took the seat across from Priscilla. Her posture was all professionalism, one leg crossed over the other, pen at the ready. Mrs. Halderman, she said, we have a few options here. First, we can formally process this as a criminal act, filing a false police report. That's a misdemeanor, up to 1 year in jail and a fine of $2,000. Priscilla gasped. What? Second, Reyes continued without flinching, we can drop the formal charges, provided you write a signed, written apology acknowledging the misuse of emergency resources and the damage your lie could have caused. But this is insane, Priscilla snapped, her voice rising. I'm the victim here. Reyes set the clipboard down slowly. You're a woman who tried to use the system to punish someone for not serving you. That's not victimhood, that's abuse of authority. Priscilla began to fumble for her purse. I want to speak to someone. Your boss, the mayor, the city attorney. I have friends. I'm sure you do, Reyes said, standing. Would you like to call them from the holding cell, or after you write the apology? The threat was unspoken, but very real. 1 hour later, the apology wasn't sincere. It was scrawled in shaky cursive, sprinkled with half-hearted phrases like misunderstanding and regret. But it was legally acceptable, and Captain Reyes accepted it with a tight smile and a signature at the bottom. You're free to go, she said, opening the door. Priscilla shot Marcus one final glare as she walked past. He offered no reaction, just a simple nod. He didn't need to gloat. But the story wasn't over. The memo, winning. 2 days later, Marcus sat at his desk, sipping coffee and catching up on overdue reports. A thick manila folder landed on his desk with a loud thwack. Kevin, the front desk officer, stood there smirking. You've got mail. Marcus opened it. Inside was a formal complaint, filed by Priscilla Halderman. Subject line, improper conduct, emotional distress, and institutional retaliation by the Riverstone Police Department. He didn't even finish reading before he chuckled. She's going for it. Captain Reyes appeared in the doorway behind him. Already read it. She's demanding sensitivity training for the entire department and compensation for trauma. Marcus held up the letter. Do I frame it or shred it? Reyes smirked. Neither. We're filing it under Category 12. Which one is that? Reyes nodded toward the trash can. The circular file. The community reacts. By the end of the week, news of the incident had quietly circulated throughout the department, and, amusingly, around the neighborhood. Someone had posted about the event anonymously on a Riverstone community board. Title, Gas Station Karen Tries to Get a Cop Arrested. Guess what happens? Within days, it had over 20,000 views. The comments were a mix of outrage and satisfaction. This is exactly why people don't take real victims seriously. Classic Karen. She got off easy, if you ask me. Good on that officer for staying cool. I'd have lost it. Marcus didn't reply to any of them. He didn't need to. He wasn't in this job for the internet points. But he appreciated quietly that the truth had legs, a quiet conversation. Later that Friday evening, Marcus was locking up his desk when Officer Rios caught him by the vending machines. Hey, Rios said. You handled that whole thing. Like a pro. Marcus shrugged. I've seen worse. Still, I probably would have snapped or said something I'd regret. Marcus considered that. I used to, but you learn over time. When someone tries to pull rank on you because of your skin or your uniform or just because you said no, the best revenge isn't yelling. It's letting the facts walk them into a corner and watching them try to climb out. Rios nodded. Think she learned anything? Marcus dropped a few quarters into the machine. Doubt it. But maybe someone watching did. He pressed the button for black coffee, same as always. Closing scene. Alone in the parking lot, Marcus stepped out into the chilly night air, sipping his second-to-last coffee of the day. The Riverstone PD lot was quiet, just the hum of a security light and the distant sound of tires over gravel. He looked up at the moon, then down at his old Taurus, the same one Priscilla called that thing. He smirked. He didn't drive a fancy car. He didn't wear tailored suits or give lectures about community standards, but what he had was dignity, and no amount of Karenism in the world could take that from him. Yes, I've completed Part 4, the unexpected ending, the confrontation at the station in English, written in the style of American cinematic storytelling, with a target of around 1,500 words, designed for American YouTube audiences who enjoy dramatic, emotional, and redemptive narratives. Here's the full part. 3 weeks passed. Detective Marcus Bell had nearly forgotten about the gas station incident. Or rather, he had filed it away into that mental cabinet where ridiculous stories go. Somewhere between a man who tried to rob a bank with a Nerf gun and the woman who reported a lawn gnome for threatening her dog. Life had moved on. The precinct was busy with new cases, budget reports, and a rookie officer who kept forgetting to put his cruiser in park. Until Kevin flagged him down at the front desk one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Detective, Kevin said, smirking. Guess who just walked into the lobby? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Don't tell me, Karen Prime? She's back, Kevin sang, spinning his chair. And she brought back up, like, folders, documents. I think she's building a case, Marcus blinked. Seriously? Kevin nodded. She asked for a formal internal hearing, said she's ready to expose targeted retaliation and professional misconduct. Marcus sighed, took a sip of cold coffee, and headed for the security monitor. Sure enough, there she was, Priscilla Halderman, sitting in the waiting room with the same confidence of someone who mistook delusion for entitlement. This time she wore a leopard print scarf and a blazer too sharp for city humidity. A leather folder sat in her lap like a loaded weapon. Captain Reyes spotted Marcus watching from the hallway and joined him. She came back, Marcus muttered. Reyes crossed her arms. Did she bring legal counsel? No, just attitude. The captain glanced at him. Want to take it? I think I have to. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat across from her in a quiet interview room. The lights were soft, the walls neutral, and the clock on the wall ticked with sharp precision. Mrs. Halderman, Marcus said, not cold but certainly not warm. Detective Bell, she returned. I'm here to present my request for internal review regarding your behavior, both during and after the incident. She placed the folder on the table, opened it, and slid papers toward him. These are copies of community messages, statements from neighbors, and a written record of emotional distress caused by your unprofessional conduct. Marcus flipped through the documents. Message board rants. A typed note from someone named Cheryl W., alleging that Detective Bell made a resident feel unsafe. Screenshots of posts, underlined quotes. Nothing substantive. Nothing honest. Are you finished? She asked, smoothing the front of her jacket. Marcus closed the folder and slid it back to her. No, he said, but you are. Her smile faded. I let you talk, Marcus continued. Now I need you to listen. She straightened. Excuse me? You walked into a gas station, demanded a stranger to pump your gas, called 911 when he said no, lied to a dispatcher, weaponized race, and then followed that man, me, into a police station to try and get him arrested for being polite but unwilling to serve you. Priscilla's eyes narrowed. I felt threatened. No, ma'am. You felt entitled. And when someone didn't bow to that, you panicked. Her voice trembled. I was scared. You weren't scared. You were insulted. There's a difference. He paused, letting the silence stretch. You know what would have happened if I weren't a cop? If I didn't have a badge? If someone else responded to your 911 call, believed your words, and acted without question? She looked away. I could have been cuffed, booked. I could have lost everything because you didn't want to pump your gas. Still silence. You think this is about a gas station? It's not. It's about power. You used the system like a club, and you aimed it at someone who, thank God, knew how to defend himself. A long breath. Then Marcus stood up. You came here thinking you'd get another chance to be right, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is admit you were wrong. He turned to leave. But then, softly, almost too quietly, she said, Wait. He turned. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she said. But it did, he replied. She nodded slowly. My husband was a cop, retired last year. He would have told me I crossed a line. Marcus didn't answer. I came back because I couldn't shake the feeling that I did something ugly. You did. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with realization. I wanted to be better, she whispered, but I didn't know how. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then start with this. Stop thinking the world owes you something. Start listening more than you speak, and understand that respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn. She nodded. Then he left the room. A week later, a white envelope appeared on Marcus's desk. No return address. Inside was a typed letter. Simple, sincere. Detective Bell, thank you for not pressing charges when you had every right to. I didn't deserve your patience, but I needed it. That moment changed something in me. Quietly, but permanently. I can't undo what I did, but I can make sure I never do it again. That's a promise. And I owe it to more than just you. I owe it to the people I judged without reason. I'll never forget what you taught me. Respectfully, Priscilla Halderman. Marcus read it once. Then again. Then he folded it, placed it in his drawer, and leaned back in his chair. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. Some apologies didn't come in the form of grand gestures. Sometimes they came in the form of quiet change. It had rained the night before. The streets of Riverstone glistened beneath the early morning sun, like the whole city had been scrubbed clean while the world slept. The sidewalks sparkled. The wind carried the scent of wet concrete and blooming jasmine. And for once, everything felt still. Detective Marcus Bell stood at the front steps of the police station, sipping his usual coffee, black, no sugar. A few rookies passed behind him, laughing about something unimportant. He didn't join in, he was thinking. In his pocket was the letter. He hadn't shown it to anyone, hadn't talked about it since receiving it, but it stayed with him, folded once, paper soft at the edges, like something sacred. He thought back to that day at the gas station, the heels, the glare, the accusation. He remembered the quiet fury behind her entitlement, the way she used his skin as a weapon and his silence as an excuse. And then he remembered how it ended, not in cuffs, not in shouting, but with a letter, with change, quiet change. The kind the world never notices, but desperately needs. A horn honked down the block, a school bus pulled away from a stop, kids waving through fogged-up windows. Life was happening, and that, he realized, was the point. He didn't need recognition, he didn't need revenge. What he needed, what the world needed, was more moments like that letter. Moments where people stopped long enough to see who they were and who they could be if they chose better. Later that day, he found himself at Riverstone High School again, this time off duty, speaking to a class of juniors about law, life, and how the two didn't always agree. One student, tall, awkward, wearing a hoodie 2 sizes too big, raised his hand and asked, "Do you ever get tired of it? Like being calm when someone's trying to break you?" Marcus paused. He looked at the student for a long second, then nodded. "Yeah, I get tired. I get angry. I'm human. So why don't you snap?" Marcus smiled. "Because when I do, they win." "Who?" "The ones who want the world to stay broken. The ones who expect me to act like the stereotype they already decided I am." The classroom was quiet. "But when I stay calm," he said, "when I hold that line with respect, even when it's not given back, I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me, for the badge I wear. And for the kids who look like me, who haven't figured out yet how strong they are." Someone clapped. Then another. Then the whole room. Marcus didn't bow, he just nodded, grateful. That night, he drove home in the Taurus. It still rattled at red lights and smelled faintly of old coffee and engine oil. But it was his, just like this city was his. Just like his story, flawed and weathered, belonged entirely to him. At a stoplight, a car pulled up beside him. A white BMW. Not hers, but close enough to make him glance. The driver was a woman in her 30s. She smiled politely. He nodded back. No judgment, no baggage. Just people. 2 cars, 2 lives, moving forward. The light turned green, and with it, he let go of the last piece of what had happened. We all have a choice. When we're wronged, we can fight fire with fire, or we can wait, speak with dignity, walk away with grace. Not every fight deserves our fists. Some deserve our silence, others our strength. Because in the end, it's not about who shouted the loudest, it's about who stood tallest when it mattered most. And sometimes the loudest message you can send is just walking away with your head held high.